Hey y'all, this is a tutorial that I'm making on how Stable Diffusion can be used in uh, what it pays attention to and how prompting works on things. So I started by taking an old image that I had of some three-eyed mice that I had just sketched out a while back, and I did a really super fast sketch of a trombone, like just 20 minutes or so, just getting all of the base shapes in with like three or four types of color, but not really going into high detail. As you could see, there's a bunch of stuff that's just like vaguely implied, and nothing's quite straight, but it generally gives the feeling of being trombone shaped. So if we look at Stable Diffusion, I have it set up to have an XY plot as one of the outputs. So I made an XY plot of using the image input by putting it into my image to image here, and then from there being able to see that when I just use the word image content as the prompt, at low denoising levels, so I should explain what an XY plot is. So I have three different seeds, which are just pretty much random locations to start from and how it, or random structures to start from and how it's generating its noise. And then I have levels of denoising. The lower the level of denoising, the closer it is to that original composition, where if we look here, the trombone shape manages to be very thoroughly maintained, and then the mice are entirely gone in these. They've been converted into other shapes because it was not a high percent of the image. So making sure that what you want to keep has the correct focus levels on it can be incredibly important. And then as it goes to higher denoising, it no longer has anything that resembles either a trombone or mice. Though it did create something interesting over here, which is cool. Image content. What amazing stuff. Um, so then, moving on from image content, I decided to do one that is trombone, and it's trombone the prompt I used was something along the lines of an ornate trombone with exquisite engravings. And you could see that these set of images at the top still pretty close. The mice again entirely gone, just with the way the content awareness functions. But then we see some things that are pretty exquisite engraving trombone type things coming up here, and some things that are exquisite engravings and gravely, vaguely resemble trombones, but are not really trombones hanging out in the area that's denoised all this way. So you could see that the level of guidance of having an image input can make it so you get much more clear and reasonable results out of guiding your AI with an image. And then I also did one with mice focus. This is the first time that we see the mice didn't entirely disappear. They turned into something funky that's a little weird, but you see that also, despite having the focus be on the mice, the trombone still stays relatively intact at low denoising levels because it's such a large amount of the image space that even a little variance of not having focus on it, it's still going to have some level of coherency at lower denoising levels. Moving on to those mid denoising levels, we have some like cute rat appearances coming up here. They have maybe some extra ears and stuff going on, but the trombone, since it's no longer the focus of the prompt, is going to start to deteriorate out of existence the higher denoising level it gets. In this one, the trombone has become some mice creatures. In this one, there's a fusion mouse trombone going on, and then we see at high denoising levels, there's very little resemblance of the original structure, but a little bit of what came in with how we built our mice originally is influencing like the color palettes and the structure of things. So we could look back at our mice and then look, and we have some cute mice available, but it's possible in Stable Diffusion to zoom into a section. So instead of being like, I would like this to work from the basis of this entire image, I'm going to work from just the basis of this face instead. And that is the structure that I'm going to work from. So with that in mind, I before that, I also did one that was a hybrid focus where I put in that there are some two three-eyed mice, and I also put in that there's an ornate trombone that has engravings on it. So the combination of my two prompts. As you can see, the mice get a little bit more maintained than not having them in the prompt, but neither the mice nor the trombone really end up becoming terribly cohesive. So here, I zoomed in on just the section with the mice and did the same prompt I did for when it was zoomed out. And we can see that a lot of the mouse posing from the older one has a less resemblance to the original image than what we get by having the zoom in and then running it with the same parameters, because it has a little bit more guidance to cohere to. So it brings in a lot more of that together shape that was flowing in the initial sketch. So zooming in dramatically, or like cropping and adjusting the image so that the AI can focus very purely on what it's trying to focus on, helps get good value out of the situation. Then I did the zoom in one, but with the hybrid focus and this generated some interesting results because now all it had was a little bit of a corner of the trombone in order to work with. So it starts trying to figure out what is a trombone in this thing, and it'll convert like one of the mice into a trombone, or it'll convert some of the shapes they're sitting on into trombone-like things. And this ended up generating some very interesting and nice looks for some of the mice. They still have a bazillion fingers and not quite being actual mouse shaped, but there's really good feelings based on like the gradation in like high focus fur into blurry fur as it falls off and things like that. And so if you uh, give something a specific focus that has part of the image, it will use that as guidance, and then the variation into something else will be. It definitely doesn't appear to be terribly trombone shaped here, but you could see the metallic elements of the trombone coming in some of the like characteristic curvature that shows up. I did a re-render of this with a few more steps, so just like more processing time, and using more processing, a lot of the shapes that are of the invented trombone bits that were entirely absent in our initial image end up being dramatically more clear. We have at this edge here, it has the ornate engraving, and it, even though it is not a trombone, there are closer things to how a trombone is, along with like a decent rendering of the mice involved, and just ends up with many cute mice, which is great. So now, if we zoom in on the mice, but then instead of saying mice and trombone, we just say trombone, it gets confused. So even at low denoising levels, it's trying to figure out what about this composition is a trombone, and it's not really able to figure it out. So it starts to, as we gradate into more levels of denoising, we could see that it's like, oh, well, this is a warm color, so warm color is probably the trombone, since a lot of trombones, the material they're made out of, has a warm color to it. So we see that start to come in the mid denoising levels here. And then the things that it invents look pretty cool, but also are very much not trombones. They have a feeling of trombone, but the difference in between this instrument here and the instrument we get from doing a working with the prompt of trombone while having access to a guidance of a trombone. This versus this are entirely different things, and that shows what happens about having image guidance to help out in making sure that the AI is creating something in alignment with what you want. Because with the AI, it's very easy to get cool stuff, but getting cool stuff that you have influence over is dramatically more challenging. So then I just took some of my favorite mice, took some of my favorite trombone, and then all of the trombones I noticed actually are not functional in being trombones because they don't have a mouthpiece anymore. And last time I checked, you need a mouthpiece to play a trombone. So I took the best looking mouthpiece from all the trombones and then took the best looking trombone and then took some of the cute mice that were assembled in one of the images and brought those all together to have the contrast in between what I started with and being able to bring in some of those shapes. And right now there's some like very basic blurry photoshopping to get those in place. But of course, clean up, paint more, make it look good. But the difference in between this and this is pretty substantial for just like learning how to get value out of the different elements of your structure and how to make it so they actually work for doing what you want instead of just making a something. I hope that this has been helpful and hope all of y'all have a blessed and beautiful day.